Hi, welcome. It is good to be with you and to check in at the end of a challenging week and the beginning of a new one. I continue to experience an approach avoidance mode of interacting with an increasingly open world. Everything I do for the first time in over a year feels both familiar and strange, welcome, and somehow disorienting. I am reminded that in Jewish tradition, we have a blessing upon seeing a person we haven't seen in at least a year. It may seem strange at first, but when I think about it, I find it meaningful and quite creative. The blessing is as follows. Baruch atah Adonai, mechaye hametim. Blessed are you, Adonai, who revives or restores to life the dead. In an unpredictable and always uncertain world, without any form of mass communication, where people could fall prey to illness, natural disasters, armed conflicts not of their making, and yet in which they might be caught in the crossfire, where travel was undertaken with the utmost care and preparation, and yet with full knowledge that the traveler might not return. The reappearance of an individual who had been gone for a year was truly miraculous and worthy of blessing. Even in our isolation and seclusion, we had the good fortune of being able to speak with and even see our friends and family during these 15 months since the pandemic began. And yet it would not be inappropriate to say a blessing of this kind upon seeing people in person we have not seen in so long. As we acknowledged last week, we have all escaped death in this last year. Sadly, many of us have been deeply affected by the loss of loved ones, but we ourselves are here and are emerging into life renewed and restored. So let us pause for a moment and with our first breaths, feel the intensity, the reality, and the victory of our restoration to life. Let us find our positions that best work for us. Let us sit with some attentiveness and yet with ease as well. Our feet firmly on the ground, our hands. Let us just let them drop in our laps so that they might relax, unclench, and send the message to the rest of our bodies to unclench, to let go, to assume a position of ease. You may close your eyes. You may focus softly on something in the distance. And let us take that first full breath. Oh my. It is restorative. We breathe all day long. We would not be sitting here or standing here or lying on the ground in meditation if we didn't breathe multiple times every minute. And yet when we pause and just notice and just allow ourselves the luxury of concentrating, of thinking about taking that breath in, of feeling it truly fill our bodies, in through our mouths, down our throats, into our chests, through our bodies, our waist, our legs, down to the tips of our feet, tips of our toes. We might pause at the fullest point, feeling it, enjoying it, and then let it out. Slowly, all at once. Whatever feels right to you in this moment. And let us pause again at the out breath before we take another breath in. If there is any sign or symbol of our aliveness, it is our breath, these precious inhalations and exhalations. We ignore 99.9% of the time. Thank goodness. Thank goodness most of us usually don't have to think about it. But that's what makes these moments special. The pause, the noticing, the realizing, the feeling. There is another blessing in our tradition with which you are very familiar, but perhaps not quite as familiar with its usage in this context. It is our custom to recite the Shehechianu blessing at times of great joy and accomplishment, as we thereby thank God for keeping us alive and allowing us to reach the important moment for which we are reciting the blessing. This kind of thanksgiving extends to the first day of any holy day, with the exception of fast days such as Yom Kippur, Tisha B'Av. The recitation of the blessing is another instance of giving thanks for something we haven't experienced in a year since the last time we observed the holiday at hand. Additional circumstances in which we recite Shehechianu, however, include the performance of a seasonal mitzvah, not just observing the holiday, but for example, doing the rituals, shaking the lulav, lighting the Hanukkah candles, eating matzah. Those are all Shehechianu moments because we haven't done them for a year. Eating a seasonal fruit for the first time that season. Our groceries are now pretty much 365 days a year, but it used to be the first asparagus that might appear in February as a harbinger of spring, the first blueberries as the symbol of summer, or eating a new fruit for the very first time that we had never tasted before, or a new food that we had never tasted before. Another circumstance for which we would recite Shehechianu might be acquiring a new piece of clothing or other item of significant value, or deriving significant benefit from a special event. Thus, I would suggest that the first time we do something we haven't done in a year or been able to do in this last year, it would be altogether appropriate and meaningful to recite or chant, Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, Shehechianu, v'kiyamanu, v'higianu, lazman hazeh. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us to this time. Let us pause for another moment with the words of this remarkable blessing uppermost in our minds, perhaps using one of the words or a phrase of the blessing as a kind of mantra. We could close our eyes, we could breathe in and just recite in our heads or even whisper to ourselves, Baruch, 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 or even Baruch Atah Adonai, Baruch Atah Adonai. Or we might choose Shehecheyanu, just by itself, who has kept us alive, Shehecheyanu. Or Shehecheyanu V'kiyamanu V'higianu, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and brought us. So let us try that. You may use any part of the blessing that you wish as a mantra or none at all, whatever feels right to you. You may use it in Hebrew or in English or in both. Let's spend another few moments before we proceed. Breathing in. And breathing out. We breathe in with a mantra or without it, but even so, this moment might dovetail with a gratitude practice, because that is what we are doing by breathing in. And by breathing out again, we are saying, thank you, God. Thank you for this breath that fills my body and keeps me alive. Baruch atah Adonai. Praised are you, Adonai. Praised are you. Shehecheyanu. You have kept me alive. As part of our experience of reemerging, there has been a great deal written about what we might have learned during the pandemic, what we want to retain of what we have learned, and certainly much that we wish to discard. As you know, I have been intrigued by those habits we have newly acquired and do not wish to abandon. In fact, Jewish tradition gives us the constant opportunity to tune up, tune in, and to adjust our life's course. In my ongoing reflection of these many months, I came across the following, offered by Rabbi Michael Strassfeld, that he quoted from The Lost Art of Compassion, written by Lauren Ladner. We spend so much of our time doing things automatically that it is important to assess whether our habits bring us real joy. Whenever we think that how we spend a given day or even a given hour is unimportant, and whenever we think we need to rush through what we're doing so that later we can get to something more relaxing, meaningful, or important, we are cheating ourselves. In fact, we never know for certain that we'll be around for the future that we imagine. What is certain is that any of us can pause in this moment to consider what's most essential and then live this moment in a deliberate, meaningful, beautiful way. That, in a well-articulated nutshell, is the goal of meditation and of mindfulness practice, and I might add, of our lives, to be fully present in each and every moment. One of the changes I have heard about in this last year is that along with sitting down together for dinner, many families have made a no technology zone part of their shared meals. That has become one of those changes that families are determined to maintain going forward. A no technology zone that is part of every evening meal. It's what blessings encourage us to do. They are consciousness-raising vehicles that say to us, this is happening right now. Pay attention. Be here. Be now. Be in this moment. Baruch atah Adonai. In the same article in which he quoted Lauren Ladner, Rabbi Strassfeld reflected on what it might mean to live in God's presence, an idea to which the mystics of our tradition particularly gravitated. We might phrase that possibility as living according to God's laws, according to the Torah, or according to our highest values and aspirations. Rabbi Strassfeld writes, if we live with a constant awareness of God's presence, our beings are transformed. We can become a presence ourselves, being open-hearted, but not overwhelming, compassionate, able to hold both assurance and doubt simultaneously, and yet comfortably and constructively building a future. As we acknowledge God's power in the world, so too as God's creation, we have an aspect of that power. Paradoxically, he describes another aspect of God's majesty, and by extension, ours. This is the power that comes from not being in control. He writes, when we give up the notion of control, we can stop striving to reach that mirage that is always out of reach. As mortals, we can never control our fate, but we may achieve an aspect of sovereignty by controlling our reactions to life's unfolding. That we cannot stop suffering or death, we can make choices about how to respond. It is that power to control our response to life and its challenges that is what these moments of meditation can help us to achieve. Because such choices are made moment by moment, consciously, mindfully, in the face of and contradistinction to our knee-jerk reactions, our automatic responses that tend not to change anything, but maintain us in familiar patterns of behavior and often of frustration. I had a conversation this week with a friend who was describing a repeated instance of difficulty she was confronting in her personal life. The difficulty was created by another person, and hard as my friend tried, she could not induce that person to change their behavior. The situation was so upsetting that it literally kept her awake at night. After discussing it, all she had done to rectify it to no avail, and the remaining frustration of the whole thing, my friend finally said, all I can control is my reaction to the situation. By recognizing that her true power in this situation lay in giving up any illusion of control over it, and recognizing that her only control is in her own reactions, she is no longer victimized by the perpetrator of the difficulty. She regains her own agency and feels her own capacity and integrity as an effective human being. as we all understand from our own experiences of such situations, that kind of choice to let go needs to be made over and over again, as it is a change from our normal ingrained reactions of defensiveness, guilt, anger, and frustration. That is why this is called a practice. We have to practice new ways of responding, new ways of being. We have to rewire our brains with new circuitry. We can control our own reactions right here, right now. And again, in the next moment from now, right here, right now. We can be present. We can give up control and bless this moment of life in the fullness of our power to observe, to appreciate, to enjoy, and to give thanks. In fact, recognition of the importance of the present moment is built into the structure of our faith, as every morning we say, "Thank you, God, for restoring my soul to me." As we say every morning, "Thank you, God, for creating the sun that brings on the new day." Our lives similarly unfold minute by minute, day by day. Let us practice living by that reality with a Shehechianu in our hearts for being right here, right now. Let us take a few more breaths before we conclude. Right here, right now. Thank you, God. I am here. Deeply, fully, wholly. Lovingly filled with this breath of my very life. By way of conclusion and a prayer for the week ahead, I share with you this reflection from the incomparable John O'Donohue. It is entitled, "To Receive Each Day as an Invitation." It's not a poem in his normal style. The liturgy of dawn signals the wonder of the arriving day. Magic of darkness breaking through into color and light is such a promise of invitation and possibility. No wonder we always associate the hope and urgency of new beginning with the dawn. Each day is the field of brightness where the invitation of our life unfolds. A new day is an intricate and subtle matrix. Written into its mystery are the happenings sent to awaken and challenge us. No day is ever the same, and no day stands still. Each one moves through a different territory, awakening new beginnings. A day moves forward in moments, and once a moment has flickered into life, it vanishes and is replaced by the next. It is fascinating that this is where we live, within an emerging lacework that continually unravels. Often a fleeting moment can hold a whole sequence of the future in distilled form. That unprepared second, when you looked in a parent's eye, and saw death already beginning to loom, or the second you noticed a softening in someone's voice and you knew that a friendship was beginning, or catching your partner's gaze upon you and knowing the love that surrounded you. Each day is seeded with recognitions. I wish you a week full of those recognitions, moment by moment, second by second, as your life unfolds. God bless. See you next week.